Hello everyone, a wonderful day all of you. Welcome to our institution of Global Professional Pre-International Webinar in IGP platform. Thank you all for joining with this wonderful evening. I am Kamrul from Bangladesh. First of all, I request to you all you share this webinar in your Facebook friends and share this webinar on your news feed. Today we have completed our 421 webinar. Now I will be presenting webinar number 422 and the topic is effective teaching strategies in the new normal education system. Today we have a speaker from India. She is assistant professor JNB University, Jodhpur, Rajasthan, India. Let's welcome our ma'am to the screen. Hello ma'am, good afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. So please do let me know when can I start?
Yes, ma'am, you can start your presentation.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. So the topic for this lecture is effective teaching strategies in the new normal education system, since we have undergone the traumatic approach or traumatic stress or whatever you can just name the period that was just recent past. It was actually to be named as terrible because everything came to a standstill. It stopped, but the learning didn't stop. And it was such a beautiful experience when we were sitting in our comfortable zones, and the education and the internet and the, you can say, online courses were abundant, so that we they kept our minds occupied all the way through. Actually, for me it was an advantage. I mean, there were certain glitches, certain problems that came across, since we were very new to all this concept, though there were a couple of people who were engaged into online activities. But still, for the general people, it was a difficult phase, but the learning never stopped. That was the blessing of this particular time. So I am Vibha Bhoot from Jainar and Vyas University, Jodhpur, and as on the screen, my specializations are gender studies, feminism, etc. And I am a student of feminism to the core, and I have been doing extensive research in prison literature related to feminism, then partition literature, again diaspora, etc. So here I start with my presentation. I hope you'll enjoy it. Now, this is a brief overview of what we are going to learn today. So there'll be a couple of teaching methods that I'm going to discuss, then some traditional learning methods with the contemporary methods, and a comparative study of the both traditional and contemporary learning methods. There are a couple of online teaching strategies that I have enumerated in this presentation, and then how to create a perfect PowerPoint presentation. Believe me, there have been blunders all the way through. In fact, even the most learned of the experts have made blunders regarding this concept. So this was a mandatory thing for me to take up on this platform. And this is a brief overview of about what we are going to learn in this particular lecture. So now there are, to start with, I have enumerated a couple of methods of learning and teaching, obviously. So it can be categorized into four broader types. Now, the word lecture is derived from the Latin word lectus, which means that which is read. And it wasn't until 16th century that the word was used to describe oral instructions given by a teacher in front of an audience of learners. Presently, teachers use lecture method that involves primarily, you can say, an oral presentation, a physical presentation of the learning before the students is more over what a lecture is. Now, many lectures are supplemented by you can say audio visual aids, slideshow, as in today we are going about a word document maybe, which is circulated generally during the lectures as well, some film, some image, and so on. So now these are a couple of methods. Now the teacher centered method, as the name tells you, that it is more over whatever the teacher delivers, then as in the lecture thing. So the teacher delivers a lecture, and this is mostly teacher centered thing. And then the learner centered thing. Now the teacher centered methods, they have their own advantages and disadvantages as well. As on the screen it says that the environment of the class is controlled by the teacher, as in the traditional methods, like we will be speaking shortly about it now. But one advantage that goes about is that you get to know about the new things, because the new things, the new research depends upon the teacher's learning, the teacher's you can say output, rather input. So when the teacher is well researched, well read, then the lecture is at its best eventually. But the disadvantages are thus that it's absolutely, though these days in the teacher centered method there is a two-way traffic, two-way communication, but in the original defined lecture system or the teacher centered method, it is just the one-way traffic, wherein the teacher would deliver the lecture. Now when the teacher delivers the lecture, the listeners become inactive, they become, you can say, they go in the dormant state, and they become passive learners. Now again, the third disadvantage would be, actually there's a lot of expectation by the teacher. Say my observation, or I am a professor since last 17 years, the conclusion, or rather the extract of my research over students is thus that the interest span of the student is just 10 minutes, and within those 10 minutes, if you are able to convey your message, it's okay, otherwise the lecture is a flop. Now what you have to do is, you after the ten minutes frame of time, you have to give them a break, so that they refresh their mind, and then they go back to whatever you were speaking. This is the teacher centered method. And let us study about the next one. Now the learner centered approaches. Now wherein these days lots of research has happened on how to enhance learning. So centered approach, they view the learners as an active agent. They bring their own knowledge, past experiences, education, ideas, and this impacts how they take care on board new information and learning. It differs significantly from the traditional instructor or the teacher centered approach. The traditional learning approach, or the lecture thing that we spoke about a couple of moments back, actually it is they were more into the behaviorism of the teacher. I'm sorry. When there is a teacher centered approach, there is more stress on the behavior of the teacher, demeanor of the teacher, personality of the teacher. So many things intervene while the lecture is being presented. The interest is grabbed not only depending upon the learning, as well as the entire aura of the teacher. But here in the learner center approaches, these are some engagements, or rather some tools that are used by the learner center approach. Now the learner is seen as a blank state or blank slate by the teacher in the teacher centered method. But herein the learner is seen as carrying some experience, wherein he can be competent enough to be having a debate, or he can be put into some game or some role play or something. So there are, you can say, engagements from the side of the learner, and the learner is involved totally into the learning. So it's like a very, even the projects that the schools give to our children. Now this approach sees the learner as a respondent to the external stimuli. External stimuli means that what the teacher wants them to do, or what the system wants them to go about. Now this approach gets them involved, gets them into the system, and the activities are performance based, and then they give their results. So university lecturer Martha Kennedy defined this system as, I quote, a classroom dynamic in which the students participate actively while the teacher might take a seemingly more passive role. Okay, it boils down to group work, one-to-one tutoring in the classroom between the student and the teacher, the student presentation. To learn a skill, the student must be directly involved. No teacher can stand there and tell the students how to do something and expect them to leave the classroom or whatever, unquote. Now, as per this learned professor, Martha Kennedy, this system is perfect for, you can say, interactiveness, the exchange of knowledge. In fact, let me tell you one thing that I have learned all the way through is that the students come up with great ideas about solving a problem. If there is one brain that's working when it's the teacher centered method, but there are a lot many brains that are working when you engage them in the activity. Now, this is about a learner centered approach. The next one is content focus methods. Now, what is content based instruction? The focus basically is on, as it is shown on the screen, it is on a point. There is, you can just have a center to what you are teaching or learning. Now, during the lesson, the students are focused on learning about something. That's the center point of that circle. This could be anything that interests them, from a serious science subject to the favorite pop star, or even a topical news, a story, or a film, anything. They learn about this subject using the language they're trying to learn rather than their native language as a tool for developing knowledge. And so they develop their linguistic ability in the target language. Now, this is more over for the language learning part. Basically, if it is more on the language learning part, it doesn't focus on the language learning, actually, not the content wise thing. This is thought to be a more natural way of developing language ability, though, and one correspondence more to the way we originally learn our first language. Now, this is actually kind of you can say, a shift from the L1 is your native language, to the L2 thing. Though it doesn't focus on the learning of L2, yet it takes you from L1 to L2. It facilitates the learning of the other language. Now, there are a couple of interactive methods. Now, when we think about the interactive method, when we think about, you can say, the teacher student relationship while solving a problem. Well, why I'm taking all this? Because to study about the online approach, we need to get into the interactiveness, the interactive part of the student and the teacher. So now let's get on to this interactive methods. Now, it is associated with many benefits, and there is group work, group activities. So that's a common element of interactive learning, more closely aligns with the collaborative method of most occupations and professional academics. The research consistently finds that interactive methods correlate with positive student outcomes, such as the higher rate of attention, interest in the subject matter, and satisfaction. Because of the interactiveness between the teachers and the students, there is a lot of communication that happens. Now, when there is a lot of communication, as while we are studying behavioral sciences or psychology, if you're a psychology student, you might have understood the importance of communication in every relationship. So when there is the importance of communication in every relationship, it holds valid for the student teacher relationship as well. Now, interactive classrooms also perform better on measures of student learning. One meta-analysis found that in STEM classrooms with active learning, broadly defined, student exam scored improved by 6%. In addition to greater retention, interactive classrooms performed better compared to the only lecture part that the teacher-centered thing spoke about. On higher order learning measures of, you can say, like analysis, synthesis, and evaluation, the interactive methods were best and the results went up through this method. Now, students may initially resist, you can say, interactive learning methods, obviously, because everybody would want to be in their comfort zones and not put in efforts and all that stuff. The traditional teaching way might have been very interesting for them, just to snooze and press that snooze button and relax. But then still, the interactive method has its own disadvantages, that there is a resistance. Now, lack of experience with interactive learning, the great efforts that is required out of the students in interactive learning, and the impression of the instructor, that's most important, the impression of the instructor is abdicating, and the teacher's role can factor the students into resistance. Now, the personality of the teacher has a strong amount of intervention in taking the students on a back foot. Now, how does that happen? Say, for instance, if I'm a very inert person going with a very sad face in the class and not very active or enthusiastic about what I'm teaching and what the students would be learning today, the students would doubly go on a back foot and would doubly recede into their own slumber, looking at the demeanor of the teacher. So this is just a simple example that I quoted. Now, there are strategies for interactive learning. The possible methods for interactive learning are perhaps limitless, basically, but they are constrained by the creativity and resources. Below are some few common interactive, you can say, the parts of the interactive method. It's actually, it's in comparison with the traditional lecture as well. Now let's see how lecturing is an important interactive method. Although interactive methods are often pitted against lecture only classrooms, like they are totally opposite to that, lecturing can be effective interacting experience as well. Now, when we engage our students, when we try to talk to them, evoke responses, feedbacks, the lecturing part also becomes very interesting. Now, the learning is likely to happen when the lecturer carefully connects new material to the students' existing knowledge, significant human experiences, and also when the teacher intentionally picks the students' curiosity and imagination through the use of narrative structures. This is the key element that interactive lecturing should involve. Now, there is the next one, that is brief writing exercises. Now, to get the students involved, you need to give them some brief writing exercises, something that they can be involved in. So, as for instance, asking the students for a list of items from the previous lecture, it reinforces the basic knowledge system. Asking the students to reframe a central concept in their own words, or comprehension passages, etc., etc. So this is the brief writing exercises. Now, think, pair, share. Now, when the instructor presents a problem or a question, he first asks the students to think, write individually, then pair up with other students, become a group, and the third one is the presentation part, the share. So this is a very nice and very, you can say, approachable interactive method, wherein the students are groomed to be like the instructor is instructing them to become more encouraging, respectful, questioning, and at the same time become the critique, like they become the critic of each other. So it is a very, you can say, healthy exercise of, or healthy part of the interactive method. Now, when we say discussion, as we know, the group discussions, and so many interviews, so many, you can say, MBA programs, so many other programs also encourage GDs, that is the group discussion. Now, while looking from the pedagogical approach, the discussion part has several aspects. The GD part has several aspects, as in the personality of the speaker, the deliverance of his thoughts, or just not the content. It is based upon the several activities that the person who is in the discussion has to have. So even discussion is also a very, very good interactive method. Now, the next one is problem-based learning. The problem based learning is demanding, but rewarding interactive strategy for students and instructors. Many other strategies begin by presenting material and then asking the students to apply their discrete knowledge to a well-defined problem or a question. But the problem based learning, however, begins with an open ended, usually authentic problem, requiring the students to identify what they know and what they need to know that can help them to solve the problem. Now they can determine how they acquire they need to acquire the needed knowledge, or they can formulate a hypothesis, studies, experiments, they can determine a solution and report their findings. So problem based learning is you can say advanced version of think, pair and share. So let's move on to the next slide and learn about what traditional learning methods are. And let's go back to our Gurukul times. Let's go back to the traditional formula based learning times. Let us go back to the traditional Aryan civilization methods of learning, wherein the students were required to, you can say, they were required to cram the thing, or rather, in other words, memorize the entire thing, which is why the secondary approach of putting them to a practical usage came on later. So I am not saying that traditional classrooms or traditional methods of learning were a fiasco, but still there have been a lot of disadvantages in traditional learning method with a broad overview. But one thing that traditional learning method gave us, that they kind of gave you the knowledge that was absolutely required for life. So life lessons were traditional learning method, though the modern learning has encompassed them beautifully well. Let's speak about the traditional methods first. Now there are a thing of a past, obviously, and the teachers are the controllers of the class, like in the lecture method, where they teach and take the complete responsibility of the learning environment. All the duties and powers are vested in the teacher's hands, and they, being the lecturer in the class, play the role of an instructor for the students and also the decision maker for taking the decisions for what to teach and how to teach. So the teacher is in command. Now, when we talk about the traditional learning methods, learning is actually the aim. As much as the student learns, the teachers get success in their work. So the achievements of the teachers quite depended upon, you can say, the learning of the students. Say my student cracked this exams, and these are about the traditional learning methods eventually. But in the competitive times, in the times like contemporary or now, we have to have a knowledge of everything. So the success of the student or the success of the teacher doesn't depend upon the, you can say, knowledge accumulated, or rather it is a jumbled approach, and it's already mixed in several ways. So the traditional approach is has got no, you can say, construction detail, or you can say there is no where, as in we talked about the think, pair and share thing, and it's nothing to do with the traditional method. They are just a group of students sitting before the teacher, and depends. Acha, one more thing that's most important, and not to be missed on this platform, that the traditional learning method banked upon the retention capacity of the student. If the student doesn't have a retention capacity, or the memorizing part is weak by any means, I mean, maybe due to heredity, maybe due to illness, maybe due to any other drawback that the student is suffering from, then this method is a failure, and then it cannot bring up the student to be becoming really something as competent as the bright student. So this is the biggest drawback that the traditional learning method suffers from. As for now, the points are on the screen, and I hope you might have read them. Let's move on to the contemporary learning methods. Now, what we are doing these days, what the teachers need to be equipped in, or what the students need to do while learning. Now they have and they can enhance a range of students learning outcomes. The output is absolutely beautiful. It's absolutely, you can say, great. Now, one thing that's most important with this contemporary learning method, there's one example that I have to speak about before I start up with the explanation of all these points. Say, for instance, a student has taken up physics, chemistry, maths in their 11th grade. That is like the 10th board. Here in India, the system is 10th board examination, and then you're supposed to pick up a course of your choice, and then you go ahead with your studies with that. So till 10th, we are supposed to read all the subjects, but then after 10th grade, we are supposed to choose one for the interest and research and jobs, whatever we want to focus on. So now, if a student has taken up physics, chemistry, maths for his 11th standard, 11th grade and the 12th grade, and so further on, he wants to become an engineer or some scientist or whatever. Now that approach wherein he has taken these particular subjects, it will direct him to so many streams. The math thing, the physics, the chemistry thing would put him in diversified things. So the contemporary learning method gives you the freedom to choose. Say, for instance, I have to become an IIT engineer, and I have to go for physics, chemistry, maths. But for some reason, after 12th standards, I'm not able to crack my JEE exams. Where in India, where we have to take these exams to qualify ourselves for the colleges. So if I'm not able to take that exam, it's not a big deal. I can choose from several other fields wherein, with the math background or the physics or the chemistry background, I can choose my BSc. I can go about any I'm becoming a scientist, or any other stream, forensic science, and so on. This is like a vast field. So the contemporary learning methods equip a person to be getting into a wide variety, and the student ends up having so many options. So he doesn't need to be disheartened, he doesn't need to be, you can say, low or depressed, wherein if not JE, there are so many other options available. Okay, so now let's get on to the theoretical part of this particular method of learning. So now the contemporary practice is about effective application of the teachers and the learning cycle using evidence informed practices, data to determine impact on student learning outcomes and the affordances of the learning environment. When the teacher takes this approach, learners are engaged in their education and feels they have a strong sense of belonging. They develop a strong foundational skill, as I spoke about, and learn how to think critically and creatively with these methods. Now, um, the best part of the contemporary learning method is that the students develop a strong sense of agency, wherein they become confident, moving between direct instruction and engaging in student centered learning. It's a combination, it's a blending of both the methods. Now the scenarios, you can say, sorry about this. The scenarios, now and then way back, the scenario of education is now, it's totally different from the scenario which was a few years back. Because of the contemporary learning methods, there has been a tremendous change in the type of learning, in the type of responses the students are giving. Now you can see that the percentage of the students, say, when I was graduating from school, I was graduating from college, I graduated from my master's, wherever I graduated from over my journey of education, the percentage comparison as for now is way high. So in those days, it was the first division that was like 60% marks were way, like they were commendable job. But these days, the students score up to 90%, 95%, even 100%. So how has this happened? The change in the methodology, the change in the approach, the blending of both the methods, or rather more focus on the contemporary learning methods. It's like again, the project based and all that stuff, the knowledge imparted has increased. The percentage of the knowledge that is being imparted is way better than earlier times, because of the, you can say, exposure to internet. So many tools of learning, so many approaches wherein the students can go about and, you can say, learn so much to learn from everywhere. It is, you can say, it's an ocean of knowledge that's flowing now. Equality in education, contemporary learning method would give equality in educations. The knowledge imparted, the knowledge that is given to the students, they are taught about science, technology. With the new education policy in India that has come in force, the student would have a blended learning. I mean, not about that online and offline thing, but about the subjects they can choose from. They can learn about science, technology, language skills at the same time, mathematics, social sciences. Everything can go parallel. But actually, sometimes even that amount of education doesn't, you can say, it's not enough to match the levels. So the teaching methodology has to change accordingly to match the students come, or to make the students come to that level. So the teaching methodology is used, you can say, through technology, or maybe the modern education is imparted through various ways. Okay, so now let us see this. There is this particular, you can say, chart that I got online, and I hope you can see it, because there are so many things that the contemporary learning method encompass, that the assessment, the engagements of the students, they're pondering on different topics. Actually, it has become a very big, you can say, zone wherein the students think now. Now it is, they support the learners, they enable them, they engage through several activities, practice, and everything, project works, and several other ways. So the contemporary learning methods, wherein the projects come over, wherein the most important role is of internet, wherein the, you can say, there is it's an umbrella. Basically, the internet has become an umbrella. Now let's see that what is it is in continuation to the contemporary learning system. Now modern pedagogy, you can say, what is this is all about. Basically what happens is, when I used to teach, say 10 years back, we were into, say, the textual part of the study, of the learning, the textual explanation, the textual, you can say, approach. So the text became, you can say, the source of education, or a single point program for the teacher to go about it. Now over a period of time, like now, what I feel is that lot more research has come in. Now it is not the sole text that is going to come over as to be presented to the students. You have to incorporate so many other elements that the text has. Say for instance, I am a student of feminism. So if the text has feminism, if the feminism is due to diaspora, if the feminism is Dalit feminism, if the feminism is, say, the women in prison whose study needs to be highlighted from this particular text, all these things come up to this text. And then the text doesn't remain the whole and sole source of information. So many things have intervened, and this particular text becomes a hub of knowledge. As in, the critical study has to be enhanced with the modern approach, and this is what modern pedagogy is all about. When I am speaking about the research, when I'm talking about the incorporation of critical overviews in the text, that is modern pedagogy. Now for the simplistic learner, for the students who would want to go about online learning through this platform, or maybe other platforms, several other platforms, technology has been a blessing. You can choose what you have to learn. you can build up yourself. This is about modern pedagogy. And the next one is the difference between the traditional, as I have already spoken about. So the scenarios were then the equality in education, the knowledge imparted, the teaching methodology. These all have differences. Scenarios were, you can say, we did not have so many sources of information while talking about traditional knowledge. Now the critical approach is also is to be incorporated with the modern education. Equality in education means these days obviously the girls and boys are equal, while their rights are equal. But in earlier days only boys used to go for the gurukul thing and all that. The content that I just spoke about, the critical invention of the thought process that has been incorporated through the modern approaches, internet, so many sources that are available. So the knowledge imparted, knowledge given to students, it has changed. The teaching methodology of course has changed, as we are already learning online about what to do and what not to do. Now, what is learning strategy? Let us come to the focal point of my study, of my research. Now, what is a learning strategy? Now, the learning strategy is a kind of say for instance the teacher's way of organizing thing and presenting them to the students in a nutshell. So it can be in an academic or a non-academic settings. As on the screen it says that one has to be methodical or get organized. Now, before the say semester begins or the lecture, as in today, before the lecture began, I had to put up certain things. I had to look into my technical capability. I required resource material and ebooks, online tools, of course, the websites, internet, so many things were thought upon before preparing the lecture. So, the online learning strategy number one is you have to be very methodical in your approaches while you are thinking about accumulation of the data. So now you have to create your own zone, not as in you're setting up your table or something, but just you have to create your own learning zone. So when you learn, you have to pick up what knowledge suits you. You have to pick and choose. Now you have to figure out that how would you learn the best, because in the learning process, you so much of the information is available, so much of, you can say, learning and approaches and point of views, everything is available. But you have to choose what suits you, what interests you, and what would be best for you rather. Okay. So you will have to actually brew your own cup. That coffee would be the best for you. Sorry about that. So you'll have to brew your own cup, and you should be good to go with your coffee, and you can enjoy. And this is about the choosing, the planning, and the next one is that you have to, you can say, make a schedule for yourself, that since this lecture had to happen today, so I was supposed to be prepared by yesterday evening at least. So you have to schedule yourself, and then you have to bring your workload into chunks by dedicating certain hours, for reading, for writing, for watching lectures, for anything that you are doing. So you have to be very careful about what has to be chosen. Now, this was one wherein I had to deliver a lecture. For a learner, the learner has to focus upon what output he'll get, or wherein that output will be utilized for his own purposes. Now, you eventually will have to let others know, your family and friends, that you won't be available for that time, obviously. And now, one thing is that the core, or the most important part of any learning is that you need to have a very open mind and a very, you can say, open heart as well, so that then you can welcome new things in your life. So now you can ask questions. You have to stay connected. You have to, you can say, figure out things. You have to or be organized. And obviously, ultimately what happens is you have to hold yourself accountable. Now, one thing is that I went across during my research, it was internet etiquettes. Now, the 10 rules of internet etiquette, or the netiquette thing. Actually, this netiquette word is net plus etiquette, and it is a neoclassical coinage. Obviously, just has been, this word has just come over. Now, the rules that are to be followed, rather they should be followed without any negligence, without any, you can say, you cannot ignore these rules. Okay, now when you are going about an online class, or even if you're preparing for an online class, there is one thing that is called etiquette. Etiquette is most important. You cannot think that the other person is a superhuman. You have to eventually be very organized. You have to be very, it's fine, it's absolutely understandable, it's absolutely human. Remember the line that the other one who's delivering a lecture is human. So actually, the when we start about netiquettes, why do we need netiquettes? Actually, it's a set of rules that encourage appropriate online behavior related to social and cultural norms of the society. We cannot go beyond the cultural norms. We cannot use obscene words. We cannot behave in a rude manner. So it has to be culturally acceptable. That behavior has to be incorporated while the delivering of the lecture, or otherwise speaking over internet or talking to your friends. Even netiquettes are, should be mandatorily followed. Now, why do we need netiquette rules? I mean, why? What is the need? You just come and deliver your lecture, and you're good to go. But the rules of netiquette that apply when communicating online are different to from those that apply when communicating to a person while, or rather physically. So it cannot be assumed that students automatically know how to communicate in an online environment. I mean, this thing is actually new. So you cannot think that this person knows. But certain things, actually, you need a value system. The value system has to be sound enough for netiquette. Netiquette rules have emerged to facilitate online interactions in the absence of visual and auditory cues, which one can often be sources of misunderstanding, as readers can easily misinterpret messages. Now, obviously, if I had put some exclamation marks on my screen, or had I used some emoticons on my screen, you would have definitely misunderstood what I wanted to communicate. So, the knowledge of network etiquette discourages inappropriate online conduct and conflict. Now, the first thing is that you have to be very ethical. I said you need a value system, so that's why the morals are required. Now, these approaches, this well, anyway, people, let me tell you, for with my experiences, people definitely follow a lot of netiquette, and they go by their value systems as well. But there are nasty ones as well. Let me tell you, this is my experience. And because of a couple of people who are nasty, the entire learning of the other people who just really want to learn gets destroyed. Now, you have to look pleasing while you are online. You cannot come with haggard looks and say that I have been doing utensils and just now I've come to deliver this lecture. Obviously, it will create a very bad impression. So, okay, the jokes apart. The next one is that any kind of disagreement or a difference of opinion has to be taken healthily by the instructor. That's the biggest rule one needs to follow. And one needs to also respect other people's privacy. Because, say, for instance, if I am a listener, I put on my camera despite the request by the organizers that you need to put off the cameras. This would be a very big disrespect for the person who's delivering the lecture. So we have to respect others' privacy as well. Even our privacy is most important. Whatever the demeanor that we show online compels other people to, you can say, frame up an opinion for ourselves. Like, Definitely, if you behave rudely, people will create. Now, these are a couple of fundamental netiquette rules. Now, I hope they are visible. Again, what I spoke about is visible on the slide. The next one is the netiquettes. Now, what are subject lines? You have to stick to your subject lines. As a part of this online thing, you will be required to you can say follow certain rules. So those are netiquettes for you. To be a part of this program, you need to be following certain rules. So whenever you post a message or send a course mail, use short descriptive subject lines. That's about the subject lines. The next one is how to limit your comments or question. You have to limit your comments or questions. It's not that you shouldn't ask, you should ask questions, but the thing is, you can use a short descriptive subject line whenever you are asking a question. Say for instance, we go by the questions in the chat box provided here. We can go by them definitely, but you need to write them very profoundly, very briefly, and you have to stay on the topic when in a discussion forum, because the new discussion will be started whenever it is appropriate. You have to proofread actually everything that you post. It's most important. It's the biggest strategy, or you can say a point to be looking forward to, that you need to the moment you post your comment, just 2 seconds before that, go read whatever you have written online, and then only hit the enter button on your laptops or on the mobile screens. So now you shouldn't use all the caps means the capitalization of the words, because it doesn't look nice. And sometimes whenever you use caps lock, or it is equivalent to shouting. So if all the titles and all the language is in caps lock, it is pathetic. So the language you should be using should be professional language. Avoid slang, text acronyms, and never use vulgar or inappropriate language. That's a hard, honest request to all of you. Basic courtesy has to be followed. I said the value system is put to a test while presenting yourself online, and how respectful you are. Your grooming, your learning through your ears is reflected in how you present yourself. You should consider your tone, be very polite. A poorly worded note can easily be understood or misconstrued. Trust me, the intonation of your sentences matters a lot. If you don't use proper intonation, it can be a big fiasco, and it can be misunderstood to the largest of extents. The recipients cannot see your body language, or probably the expression on your face also, nor they can hear the you can say, see, when we are talking to a person in person, say face to face, you can check the expression of that person on face, and you can understand the message in between lines, or the undercurrent of the dialogue that is being delivered. But while online, you cannot feel it. Sometimes when the cameras are off, you cannot see the person either. So what kind of questions are being put? You have to be really well mannered, well behaved in receiving the questions, as well as while answering them, etc. So you have to remember your audience, your classmates, your companions, or your roommates, the web roommates. They come from different places. As in, on this platform, there are so many students from variety of places. You cannot be using sarcastic language. You cannot be using some idioms and phrases that belong to your native place, because they can be misunderstood by the people who are putting up in a different place. So these are some points. So use your resources to the maximum. These things are all about netiquettes. Now let us switch ourselves from the online etiquettes to creating a perfect PowerPoint for online teaching as well as learning. This is not just because we need to teach, we need to learn as well. Excuse me. I just took a water break. Thank you for your patience. So now let's continue. When in the times wherein the visual, say these post-COVID or COVID times, wherein the visual presentation have cropped up, and the PowerPoint presentation is actually a software of choice, and it is like actually my favorite, because you can say a lot through your PPTs, through the presentations that you make. Now, though suggestions are always welcome for my presentation as well, but I would again assert on the, you can say, you should be carefully aware rather about your audience. Now, what kind of audience, since this is an international platform, and the audience belongs to they belong to so many states, so many countries, so my presentation would be targeting the audience that I am approaching. Now, you must be fully aware of what your audience is expecting. This is about online strategies. So I spoke about the behavioral thing, and now I'm speaking about the presentation part. So you have to be aware about what is the demand of the audience, what they are expecting out of you while you are preparing a PowerPoint presentation. Now you can create an outline for your presentation, because that gives you a great help. The outline gives you the structure it requires, and you have a balance array of visuals and gives you an initial look at the time required for your students to view your PowerPoint slides. Your PowerPoint should not be so long that the audience loses interest. And if you have set an amount of time, you need to be sure your PowerPoint fits within that time. So now when there is a presentation for 1 hour, then you have to target your presentation, or the number of slides should be according to the presentation. So you have to become, say, familiar with the features, obviously, otherwise how would you use them? Now, a powerful presentation tools with many features that allows you to jazz up with your slides, import other slides, add audio, video, or change the background styles, colors, etc., etc. You have to spend some amount of time learning all those features, all those the PowerPoint thing presents to you, all the. Now, when you are engaging the people in a PowerPoint presentation, there is definitely something that the students or their learners will appreciate about you, and that's a promise. So now, when you should not be you can say, at least get dazzled by the whistles and bells of the PowerPoint, because there is sometimes the beep sounds and all that. Now it is, you can say, the animations, the transitions, they make these sounds and all that stuff. Then don't bedazzle yourself with all that. Yet too much use of these things wherein the sounds and all that stuff will distract you from the primary purpose of your PowerPoint presentation. So don't use too much of distractions. Certainly, some of these fun tools can make your PowerPoint more engaging and can spotlight especially salient items from your presentation. But be very careful that your PowerPoint does not turn into a Disney cartoon, resulting in a presentation that is less than effective. Overall, keep the design simple and very basic, because design interferes with the content. So the design has to be very simple. You can limit your a slide to few bullet points, though I had so many bullet points I couldn't limit myself. Anyways, now the audience needs to quickly understand what you are presenting. Of course, you have to provide a title as well, and then if you need to add more information, you have two options: have some notes. Um, you can put footnotes or some additional notes, or simply add some material by the voice note as well. So the section called there is a section called speakers notes. You can put on a blank slide, and you can name the slide as speakers notes, and you can say what you want to say on that particular slide while presenting a PowerPoint present. This is one of the ideas that I came across while my research. Now you can use graphics, visual slide, uh, a visual on a slide won't take the place of your text actually, and it shouldn't. Beware about that. But it can highlight a point that you are making and help you to engage the audience. Have a nice balance of visuals and colors, and spend some more time searching on the spot or already created visuals. There are many sources basically online available, so you can have lot of variety or exposure to what you can incorporate in your presentation. Now your voice absolutely infuses energy and life in a PowerPoint presentation. If there is no voice of yours, the PowerPoint presentation is of no worth. You can just not throw away the PowerPoint presentation and not speak. It doesn't happen like that. Now, um, the any sound that you make on the background, or any background, if say some machinery is working or something, they definitely create a lot of disturbance. So beware that, please do not use any kind of sound. Or you can choose a room wherein which is very silent and all, because the sounds are background sounds are really very distracting and disturbing as well. And the attention of the audience or the listeners is definitely, you can say, they are not with you, they are with the sounds that are happening on the in the backdrop. Now you have to have a slideshow of what you are preparing. The timing of the changing of the slides and everything should be taken care of. Now you have various choices that allow you to view your PowerPoint as a slideshow. There are options. Now be sure to do this, and you will see what your audience will see. Be an audience for yourself. So run your PowerPoint presentation accordingly. Check spellings, grammar, spacing, font, style. And actually, it is very crucial to all components of writing to be perfect. Be sure that the font size and the style are so clear and easily read. Consider line spacing and visual placements. These are most important points of making a PowerPoint presentation. Always do a trial run with at least one person. While we see items that need to be corrected or tweaked, rarely do we see them all, because we are the biggest flatterer of ourselves, so we tend to not see our mistakes. That is why one person is required. So you'll be surprised at how many helpful suggestions you'll get when you show your PPT or presentation to someone. Your audience will be benefited from this output, that is for sure. Now, uh, on the next one, there are a few suggestions or simple steps you can make about you can incorporate while making an animated cartoon video. Now, there are so many animation makers available these days. You can definitely use them to your own convenience. There are so many ways you can incorporate or make your PowerPoint presentations very colorful, but please don't overdo them. You can animate them. You can put your own voice. You can sorry, you can do so many things, and ultimately at the end of it, you can publish, share, and download your animated video and share it with your students and whosoever you are presenting to. Now, there are certain PowerPoint tips as well. Now, these are simple rules though, but they're very important to be followed. You just cannot, the way I presented, I mean, I am not a very expert one, or not the very right person to be dealing with the PPTs, but what I have undergone, I've chaired so many sessions through this journey of my teaching in conferences. What they do is they put on the paragraphs on the slides, and then they read it from the slides. So it gives a very bad impression. As it is, the slide is visible to the audience, they can read it for themselves. So there is no need for you to read from the slides. Please just do not do that ever. Now, most important part is the target audience. Just don't ignore your target audience, because you are delivering the lecture for them. The lecture is not being delivered for you. The learning has to happen from the students or the learner's side. So do not forget the target audience. Again, I would say, create your presentation in a very, very balanced way. Now, these are again some points that need to that they have to be, you have to be sure of them, that you put them in your PowerPoint presentations. So the highlighting, the font size, or the images and text, how do you place them, how should be the headings, subheadings, margin, font size, and everything should be taken care of. Otherwise your PPT will it's a disaster. Now again, there are certain points that I have put these sentences in different styles. The first one is don't sacrifice readability, then it is in bold, sorry, in the capitalization. Then again, there is a difference between the font size of the first sentence and the third sentence. And then again, I hit enter after don't sacrifice and readability for. So these are examples to make you learn that the text should be in the shape that it's in the first line, and not on in the subsequent types. Do not ever use all the capital letters, as I spoke about it, because all the capitalization is similar to yelling. Even if while texting to someone, if you use all the capital letters, it seems as if you are yelling or shouting at that person. So please don't do that, because even writing something um, beyond the lexical meaning of that, of those words, it has a message. The way you write, the way you use your exclamation marks, the way you can say, the behavior is explicit while writing. Your behavior is, you can say, very much observed while writing. I'm sorry, I was just taking the charger for my laptop. Sorry for the inconvenience. Yes, I continue. The language has, the written language has an emotion too. So please do not exploit that emotion. The Maintain the you can say dignity of the written language as well. And the next one is that use the same background or the same type for you cannot change the slides with the styles. Okay, so that is absolutely very distracting. The colors and the most important part is the combination of the colors. They shouldn't be very striky. Colors should be subtle, soft colors, which give a soothing, you can say, effect to our eyes, and not very striking. Fluorescent colors and all that stuff, they appear to be very striky to the eyes. They should not be used. And some combinations, as in green, blue, dark yellow on green, they should not be used, because the readability, I'm not saying they're not readable, but it's very difficult to read certain combinations of colors. So please avoid using them. The thing is that the next one is the bullets. So you have to use the bullets accordingly, according to the points that you are incorporating. And every slide, whatever you are presenting, whatever you are serving people, gives a lot of you can say it gives a message about your personality, about the thinking of the person. Your work is reflective of your personality. So this is how it goes. The next one is the animation should also be balanced, limited, and you cannot just go on and on with the animation thing. Otherwise it will become a film show. Now let's move on to the next topic, that is online learning challenges faced by our students. It's actually cumbersome, it's very painful, it's very, you can say, non-interactive approach. When the students, when our learners are going online, but at the same time they have a varied zone of learning. It is such a huge thing to of information, it's such a huge approach of information, that is a blessing, as well as it's I don't know what is the word for it, but still it is sometimes not a blessing as well, because you get tired sitting before the screen for long hours. Now there are certain challenges: adaptability with the software, technical issues, internet issues, computer knowledge challenge, time management problems, self motivation. Oh, so many issues, like we lack motivation sitting for hours together before the screen and ruining our eyes. Now communication issues, because the thing goes one way, that's the biggest problem. Then again, virtual engagement, how many hours can you look at the screen, the feedbacks? These are lot many challenges faced by the students these days. Now these are the challenges faced by the teachers. Now even the teachers are going online, it is very difficult for the teachers to engage the students. They would put off their cameras and do the or look forward to the YouTube videos, or they might be gaming. So the time commitment, the teachers, how, if the students are not engaged, how would the teacher communicate? Assessment, online assessment, the students cheat to a largest of extent. So these are lots of problems that are being faced by the teachers as well. Now even the what method is to be followed by teachers for the teaching, it's very inexplicable. I mean, how do you do it? That is the question. So these are certain questions. Now let's see, what are the solutions now. When we have looked into the problem by teachers, by the students, now let us see what are the solutions. The philosophical or the administrative objections. There are many objections or many segments of the college community who looks upon online education with genuine fear, trust me, but the fears are based upon misunderstanding. The objection was concern about instructional quality, the concerns of the college or the authorities about what instructions are being provided. The answer, the solution to the problem is that the hallmark of a good learning experience is interaction between the instructor and the professor. Whether or not this is accomplished will be determined primarily by variables such as instructor's skill, class size, not whether interaction is mediated or via computer. One-way communication is poor quality education, whether it be in the form of a boring lecture, talking video head, or lecture notes published on the web. Now, the kind of approach that I advocate is computer facilitated distant education, which permits ongoing interaction not limited by the space or time, and therefore it is potentially superior to classroom seat time. Well, the interaction again must be enhanced. That is the answer to the objection. The professors are worried of losing jobs. Obviously, when there are recorded lectures, when there are so many sources wherein education can be imparted, the professors get worried about the losing of the job. Their fear is at some point in future, because obviously, and one big computer will teach all the world's students, and the professors will be automated out of jobs. Now if this is the concern, they can equip themselves with further education, and then the online teaching can happen in an effective way. Now the next one is the economically disadvantaged students cannot afford a computer or internet services. This was the biggest problem that the government schools in India suffered from. So the solution was, or it could have been, if there would have been some policies, because these unforeseen times came unwarned. They did not warn us before their onset. That is why we were not able to take care of these things. But I'm sure the authorities might have employed the devices to be putting or installing the computers everywhere, now providing them with internet services and so forth. The next one is the disabled students cannot access from some computer, but the user friendly computers for disabled students have been designed, and there are certain keys which disabled students were not able to operate, but for them the special computers were designed. The next one was the technological hurdle. The sorry, the administration says that we must build a wiring backbone, but the answer is that some administration are still on the railroad method. We have to lay track before we can run the trains. Online courses such as trucking model, trucking company does not have to build the highway. It uses what is already there. So universities do not have to build websites or email systems. The internet already exists, and as long as instructors and students have a computer and internet at home, that is all they needed. Providing students and professors web access from many points on campus is helpful but not essential anyways, because they can access the free sources available online. Now it's a lot of effort to build great websites. The download times are too long, and that's somewhat a big problem. It's a genuine concern though, but preparing such files to reduce the download time is again one of the solutions. Now, the attached files get corrupted by the viruses. This is also a problem. So the solution is that you should not, you should forbid the students to send attached files, or rather they can answer on platforms like Google, etc. So, or notepad or something of that source can be employed, which is why they do not send the viruses to the system. Now the next problem is our institution server is unreliable because it is exploiting so many so many people are using it, and so it becomes unreliable. But there are so many search engines which support these kind of approaches, and the program is to be run and not the file is to be opened. So run the program, not open the file. The practical problems are, the biggest problem with online teaching is forgetting that the goal is to create materials to facilitate students instead of showing off one's own technological prowess. Now, some people forget that I am showing my technological prowess or educating people. So your motive is to educate people, not to show your technological learning. So some websites look like mini textbooks, and there is no need to make these kind of websites either, since students can and should still have textbooks with the online teaching. The next one is the student reports problems with plugins and sound cards necessary for audio visual. Now you can forget the streaming audio visual, especially talking head videos. This problem will resolve itself in about some time, because we will have better internet things and better softwares which they can deal with these kind of issues. The chat rooms are the real waste of time. Obviously they can be replaced also. A useful tool which would answer 90% of the chat room questions would be a terms list key to the textbook. You can add a key to the textbook. The instructors are barraged by too many emails. So obviously I spoke about very briefly. And the content that is electronically searchable should be provided to the students. When we talk about human frailty, most everyday frustrations with online teaching do not occur because of the internet limitations of technology, or inherent limitations of technology, but due to the degree of variability of human capacity to interact with technology. The problem is the human interaction with the technology, that gives us a problem, and not the technology. So it can be limited by wise policies, but never eliminated though. So the students accidentally deleted messages and want them resent. That's another problem. That's human frailty. Again, professor accidentally deleted students emails. That's again human frailty. The solution that professors have to have 2 3 email IDs so that they can support the students in whichever possible way. The next problem is students send unidentified mails. Every teacher is suffering from this problem. So disciplinary action should be taken against those students. The students are cluttering the discussions with irrelevant points and flame wars. This is again a human frailty. You have to monitor them, you have to control them. They forget their passwords, they cannot log in, then also you have to help them. They do not check their mails, you have to really scold them or be very strict in this context. Cheating also becomes easier when they are online. And there is the last point, that is the fear of the unknown. Now, whenever delivering a lecture online or teaching the students online, there is a fear of the unknown. Now, what will happen? So if we do away with our passwords, anyone can enter my virtual classroom. These are also big problem. Yes, they do. It matters to everybody, and it is great. It should matter. So students in abnormal psychology have interacted with dozens of psychologists and psychiatrists and social workers around the country, and the conclusion was derived that they do it for fun. That is it. So that is why blessings to all the learners, blessings to everyone. These are normal behavioral patterns that shouldn't be attached with too much of personal stress on the part of a teacher. And thank you with that. Thank you for watching and listening to me that patiently. I end up with my presentation over here. And Mr. Hussain, if you, Mr. Hussain, are you there?
Thank you, ma'am, for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. I hope our participants understand your presentation very well. Ma'am, after quiz competition, we will come back together in our question and answer session. Thank
Surely,
you.
surely. I will do that. So do let me know when I have to come back, and after 10 minutes or so.
Yes, ma'am. 10
Okay, I'll
minutes
do
later,
that.
come back
I'll be
together.
doing. I'll be there. Okay.
Thank you. Dear participants, it's our quiz competitions time. You can join with our Slido. The code is quiz IGP. Let's enjoy the video. Dear participants, I am facing some network problems, so be patient. I'm trying to recover it. Dear participants, it's now okay to join the quiz. You have to go to slido.com and the quiz code is quiz IGP. The code is quiz IGP. I also given the link in our comment box. Already 27 participants join. We start our quiz competition in a short time. The code is quiz IGP. The code is quiz IGP. Now 30 participants already joined with us. You can scan our QR code from the screen. Now start the quiz. Our first question: which one is a type of teaching method? Effective learning or participative method? 81% of our participants give the right answer, and the answer is participative method. On the leaderboard, our next question is: group projects are a part of learners' concerned learning or teacher concerned learning? Group projects are a part of learner teacher centered learning. 100% of our participants give the right answer, and the answer is learner-centered learning. On the leaderboard, Mark Joshua leading the first position. Our next question: lecturing is an interactive method. Agree or disagree? Twenty-six percent of our participants give the right answer, and the answer is agree. Question Dear participants, we are very sorry for internet connection before in my country today. So we are very sorry. The program code is IGP4876. The program code is IGP4876. We are very sorry for our quiz competition and our question and answer session time. We hope in our evening session we come back and recover our internet problem. Thank you very much for the joining and make this webinar successful. Thank you.